let's talk about champion number 39, Dredge. I have a lot to say about this dude, and I'm gonna keep the video as short as possible, but I realize that even though I say this, there's nothing keeping me from making this the next holiday blockbuster, so it's highly likely it's going to be pushing the 15-minute mark. Dredge is the newest champion added to the Paladins with the 1.6 patch, along with the Dark Tides event. He's a damage dealer, wielding a grenade launcher that has an insane amount of burst damage, some abilities that when paired with the right cards are outright broken, and an average health pool in the damage category at 2200. He specializes in complete area denial, shutting down the objective, and unlike other grenade launching characters in video games, can fight at long distances, and against airborne enemies. If there was a fight between Dredge and Junkrat, Dredge would easily win. His kit isn't complicated, which means players of any skill can pick him up easily, but those who put the time in to master his grenade trajectory and projectile bounce will really be the ones who see him shine. Sure, you can relentlessly spam grenades towards the objective, but where's the fun in that? Do you want to be known as a shitter? I don't think so. There's a lot of stuff to cover, there's a lot of things to mention, and I don't want to ramble on any longer, so let's just get into it. First, let's talk about his weapon, the Cursed Howitzer, or as I like to call it, Junkrat's grenade launcher. Honestly, I'm surprised it took them this long to add a grenade launching champion. You would have thought that in today's progressive, politically correct world, there already would have been a champion for people that just can't aim, right? Oh wait. The Cursed Howitzer launches an explosive projectile that deals 850 damage every 0.7 seconds, provided you could land them. That's not too bad, not too bad. But wait, what's this? Reloading the weapon also fires an additional projectile that deals 1000 damage. Is that broken? I don't even know. It's bad enough that you can mindlessly spam bouncing 850 damage balls with no remorse entirely out of view from the enemy team, but to also give him a damaging reloading mechanic, like Maldamba's stun? Come on, I just think that's too much, especially for a damage character. I can understand Maldamba being able to stun being an offensive support champion and all, but Maldamba doesn't have a kit that does a lot of damage. Dredge does. His main weapon is extremely useful on practically any map, seeing the most effectiveness on siege maps, as well as close-quarter team deathmatch maps. The area denial of his weapon is just ludicrous. It's almost as if Hi-Rez wants people to stay off the objective. Lobbing a handful of these mini-barrels over buildings without end is just not fair, and what's even worse than that in my experience is he completely dominates every tank without the need of Wrecker. Terminus is the only one that comes to mind that may be able to deal with him because of his Siphon ability. But even so, Dredge will just come out on top in the end thanks to Terminus's limited resource available for Siphon. It's like whenever there's a Dredge on a team, the main objective for that team is just to make sure that he's able to spam the control point. It's absolutely ridiculous. The only way I can come to terms with Dredge having such a strong primary fire is if the rest of his kit was garbage or mediocre at best. The problem is, you see, it's not. It's fucking great. His alternate fire ability, Broadside, fires 3 projectiles dealing 950 damage that arm as soon as they hit the ground, exploding after 2 seconds. I'd also want to mention at this point that the same thing happens with the primary fire. The grenades only explode if they make direct contact with an enemy or bounce off the floor. But going back to Broadside, this ability is fucking bullshit, especially with the card that allows him to reload faster after using it, but we'll go into that later on. Broadside is easily the most abusable ability in his kit. If you thought the primary fire was great for area denial, wait until you try this. You can literally deny a choke or flank with this ability alone, and there's no cooldown on it whatsoever. You don't even need to land direct hits. All you gotta do is just aim in the general direction of the enemy and watch the eliminations pop up. Even if you don't manage to secure any kills, or damage an enemy at all for that matter, the ability is still extremely useful. And that's another problem. Broadside, in my eyes, is one of the most broken abilities in the game, and hopefully Hi-Rez rectifies this problem by nerfing it into oblivion. I'm okay with having a rapid-fire area denial projectile. I'm not okay with having one that does more damage than the primary fire while not being on a cooldown. The next ability we will talk about is Harpoon. This self-explanatory ability hurls a harpoon at your enemies, dealing 800 damage upon a direct hit, and slowing them for 2 seconds by 50%. The Harpoon also does piercing damage, so if there's more than one enemy in your line of sight, and you throw it, it will hit the one behind them as well. So let me get this straight. Dredge doesn't just shit out damage non-stop, but he can infect enemies with arthritis? Not only is that bullshit, but also impossible. Arthritis isn't a transferable disease, yet here he is handing it out like it's Halloween candy. Harpoon's trajectory flies in a straight line without any bullet drop, or harpoon drop in this case, meaning wherever you aim is where you hit. Not only this, but the range on the fucking ability is absolutely insane. Look where I'm standing in the training zone. Look how far away Sky is. This shouldn't happen. This is like a sniper. This is like a built-in sniper rifle. I like the ability. I mean, I really do. I just don't personally use it unless I'm running the no cooldown legendary. I do think the initial cooldown time for this is a bit high, but for such a strong ability, I'm absolutely fine for where it is. The next ability that we need to talk about is Shortcut, which lets Dredge place 2 portals that teleport him between the 2 portals. I mean, that's what it is. Using the teleport after the second portal is placed removes the exit point portal and enables a cooldown of 10 seconds, meaning it cannot be abused and used constantly. This cooldown cannot be affected with Chronos as well, so just keep that in mind when you're buying your items. At first when I used Shortcut, I kind of thought it was garbage. It just felt a bit clunky to me. I expected to instantly teleport to the other portal, not dematerialize for a few seconds and then finally get transferred over to the other location. It just felt slow and, like I said, it just felt a little clunky. However, my opinion quickly changed after I realized that you can teleport from one side of the map to the other without any repercussion. Just what the fuck is this? Why is this a thing? Just when you think that flank characters have an easy escape route, here comes Dredge just splitting reality in half every few seconds and traveling from one side of the map to the other. Not only is the distance covered an issue, but the portals can stay up indefinitely until used, and when used, only the exit portal disappears. All you have to do to set it back up is wait another 10 seconds, and then just go through it again, right back to where you started. That's insane. Dredge can easily flank with this, and with the right cards in your deck, he can even heal a good amount as well, just standing near the portal or using it. What the fuck? The last thing that we're going to talk about is his ultimate ability. KRAKEN is an AoE damage ability that does 400 damage after a 2-second cast time. If it hasn't been made clear by now, Dredge is an extremely capable area denier, and his ultimate supports that claim like 150%. The area of effect is fucking huge. Even if you don't manage to confirm a kill on someone with it, just using it at all makes the enemy players run away with shit seeping down their legs. It does more than enough damage to kill or severely cripple any character in the game, and pairing it with Seris's ultimate guarantees at least 2 or 3 kills, provided the enemy is stupid enough to group up against you. It's not the best ultimate in the game, but definitely not pointless. Moving right along, let's discuss Dredge's legendary cards. Yeah, I'm still not calling them talents. I don't give a shit. All 4 of these legendaries are extremely useful. However, in my experience playing him, 2 in particular seem to be what works for me. The first legendary is Scuttle, which turns the reloading projectile into an AoE damage ability. Without the legendary, the reload projectile only does 1,000 damage if you can manage to land it directly, but in this case, it does like a nuke explosion, like a bomb, like a Pairing this with the right deck, all you have to do to confirm kills is press right click and reload every few seconds. It's insane! The amount of damage this legendary shits out is asinine. Get it? Shit out? Asinine. Scuttle promotes spammy play, which doesn't stray far from his base kit at all, but providing the player with another AoE damage ability after being out of ammo is just too much. With Scuttle, you are guaranteed to severely limit the enemy team's movement. Playing against this legendary makes you feel like anything you do is pointless. Tanks get destroyed, flanks have too little health to risk even trying to take him out, and primary damage dealers usually won't even see him since he'll be lobbing blue balls of death over buildings and walls. Out of all the legendaries in the game, this is the spammiest, cheapest one I've ever come across. I really hope Hi-Rez hits this one in the next patch, because this is... I have no words. The second legendary is Abyss Spike. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't used this at all, but I can see how it can be useful. A landmine that sticks to any solid object dealing 1k damage is a very versatile tool, especially when you put it around enclosed flank paths and objectives. With Harpoon normally being on such a high cooldown, it's nice to have an additional use if you miss hitting the enemy. Not much else to say about this one. I think the amount of damage it deals is fair considering the Harpoon is easy to see after it's lodged in something, but overall I just rather use any other legendary. I can see its uses, but it's at the same time not very useful. Freebooter is another legendary that I haven't used myself, although again I can see the potential in this. You can probably make some really crazy flanking plays and all that crazy shit with the whole team, but Freebooter allows allies to pass through your shortcut portals without removing them. It's actually pretty broken when you think about it, because if you happen to get into a team fight and the enemy player is using this to their advantage, the enemy team will be back sooner than expected, if not immediately after respawning. Like I said, I haven't personally used this one myself, but I can see its uses. I mean, it can make some pretty trolly plays, but I'd rather just use the next legendary that I'm going to mention instead, which happens to be Hurl. I don't even know what to say about this one other than, my god, Hi-Rez. What were you thinking? Hurl removes the cooldown on Harpoon while also removing the speed debuffing effect, as if the speed nerf actually fucking matters in any situation where you're gonna be using this. Removing the slowdown doesn't mean jack shit if you could just kill people before they can even get away. Now, don't get me wrong, Scuttle is fucking broken, but it's a crutch for those who can't aim. Hurl, on the other hand, isn't. This legendary rewards impeccable aim. Unfortunately, Hurl also promotes spammy gameplay and mindless chucking of harpoons, so it's not really a win-win. It also makes life a living hell for any flying and long-range champion, which under normal circumstances should be able to counter Dredge. With Hurl, it's quite the opposite. I've landed long-distance shots and killed Kinesses, Strixes, and even Drogo's players before they even knew what the fuck hit them. I just can't believe this one exists. Can you imagine the discussion Hi-Rez was having over his kit? Well, our new champion is primarily based on area denial at close to medium range encounters, and definitely has issues with longer range battles. Let's give him a long range ability with no fall off damage, no bullet drop, and a legendary that removes the cooldown. Holy fucking shit. This legendary is so broken, it makes me want to just remap the ability to my left mouse button. It's infinitely better than his primary fire and broadside, provided you can aim. It does almost the same amount of damage, travels faster, and has no curve in its projectile. It does everything his normal primary fire does, but better. A 50 damage difference doesn't mean anything if you can just keep on chucking those things, like, even faster than you could shoot the regular projectiles. So, like, what the fuck? You don't even have to predict where it's gonna go. You just chuck it and then it just whoop, and there it goes. He's dead, woohoo. 9 times out of 10, you'd probably just be better off using Hurl with the Harpoon instead of just spamming his left click. It's just, god fucking damn. So, just like in my other champion reviews, I'll only be going over a few cards in no particular order that I find extremely useful. If you think there are any cards I should have brought up in this video, well, just let me know in the comments section below and I'll take a look at them. The first one up is Abyss Cannon. Abyss Cannon increases the amount of ammo broadside grants you by 1 for every level. It's a very useful card if you feel like holding down the right mouse button for the entirety of the game. The second card is Dark Bargain. Dark Bargain turns your portals into mini healing totems, healing you for 50 HP each second. Each level increased also increases the amount of healing by 50. I personally don't put too many points into this one, but maybe it'd be smart to have a deck with this maxed out if you happen to enter a game with a shitty healer, or no healer at all. Teleports acting as healing totems recovering 250 health per second can make a huge difference in your game. Having your escape route double as a healing ability indefinitely is just, it's like like, what the fuck, dude? What's up with this guy? Unfortunately, because the exit portal of Shortcut disappears, you won't be able to heal after escaping enemy fire, but still, that wouldn't really matter because you'd be far enough to heal up without anybody attacking you anyway. The third card on the list is Gun Deck. Gun Deck increases the amount of ammo by 1 for each level. Self-explanatory. Another card for those of you who want to just rely on spamming non-stop. Fourth card on the list is Heave Away. Heave Away is fucking broken and either needs to be nerfed heavily or removed entirely. This card alone is what encourages such spammy gameplay from Dredge players, even more so than his kit already does. Heave Away increases your reload speed by 8% for every level added for 5 seconds after using broadside. Having deft hands at all times without even needing to purchase it is complete bullshit. Imagine maxing this card out at 40% and then like picking Wrecker in-game. The tanks might as well just sit there with their thumbs up their ass and literally do nothing, because they won't be able to do anything at that point. This card is just so fucking broken. If anything, this card should have been a legendary with a drawback like reloading does not shoot a projectile. All people do with this fucking card is hold down right click and reload. They don't even wait for the ammo count to hit 0. They just fucking hit it, and spam R. It's just always being fucking used. It's insane. There's literally no reason not to use this card. If you do not use this card in your deck, you're a fucking idiot. There is no downside to this. This is exactly why I fucking hate Hi-Rez sometimes, because they do such stupid things. There's no reason for a card like this to be in the game. I don't think I've come across a single Dredge player that hasn't maxed or nearly maxed this out. I just think something needs to be done about this card. It's just way too good. I'm gonna have a fucking heart attack if I keep talking about it. I just fucking hate it. The last card on my list would be Mortal Skewer. Mortal Skewer heals you for 80 health for each level when hitting a Harpoon. If you've ever wanted to achieve immortality, max this out while using the Hurl legendary. You will never, under any circumstances, die, ever, and it's bullshit. Imagine being able to regenerate 400 health every fucking second by yourself without wasting an ability, while doing damage at the same time. I can't tell what's more busted, this card or Heave Way. I just don't know. They're both really, really fucking crazy. So after that panic attack over the last two cards, I'm just gonna go into a few cards that I feel have or should have a honorable mention on the list. The first being Reckless Barrage. Reckless Barrage heals you for 50 health per level when successfully hitting someone with Broadside. Making use of this card shouldn't be too hard, it's just extra sustain, just like Mortal Skewer, except it heals less and relies on the enemy walking into easily avoidable projectiles. I don't particularly think this one is overpowered unlike the last one, but still, why does Dredge have so many ways to fucking heal himself? I just don't understand. The second card would be Plank Walker, which is another healing card, healing you for 100 health for each level added to the card when traveling through a shortcut. Just what the fuck is going on, man? Is Hi-Rez planning on removing healers or something? The third and final card on the list would be Hangman's Ire, which grants you a 3-second shield that is increased by 150 for each card level when you drop below 50 HP. That one is self-explanatory, but really, is all this guy good for is spamming and healing? Because that's what it looks like, just spamming and healing. Now, even though I've complained for a few moments, I do like a few things about him. Like I said before, I welcome a pirate champion. It's a nice addition to the roster, and even goes to further expanding the lore somewhat. I like the versatility of his kit. He can do many things, and he can do them well. His legendaries allow him to play like an entirely different champion, and he completely obliterates the enemy if they are uncoordinated. He's a great counter to any team with more than one tank, and has an incredible amount of self-sustain based on how you build him. And finally, with his Harpoon, you can at least take out or cripple champions that are out of his primary damage range, making him not completely useless against flyers like Junkrat in Overwatch. Now, despite all I've just said about how I feel about him in a positive light, now I need to talk about the negatives. My primary issue with Dredge is just how spammy of a champion he is, if I haven't made that clear already. Killing people with him does not feel rewarding whatsoever, even when using the Hurl build, which encourages you to actually aim. He does way too much damage and area denial for a champion that has such a low skill ceiling compared to other characters, and has way too many ways to save himself if he gets caught off guard, which happens to be my second issue with him. I understand the purpose of his character is to fight at a distance, but when he has more escape options and self-sustain than characters that actually have to literally get in the face of the enemy to do anything, something is wrong. He wouldn't be as broken if some cards were adjusted, like his self-sustain and Heave Way. Another issue I personally have with this kit is the fact that his teleports do not go away until you actually use them. Having them on a timer would, in my eyes, rectify this and encourage smarter plays. Instead of just placing a portal down near the spawn and then like one further in the backline so you can like easily flank. There's also the fact that you can use the teleports as permanent healing totems because again, they just don't go away. Like, come on. For those of you that are still learning how to play Dredge or just want some tips, here you go. I got a few for you, alright? So, one technique I found useful while spamming Broadside was to try and trap your enemies by aiming the ability around them instead of trying to predict where they'll be headed. Shooting the projectiles adjacent to them in one spot is easy to avoid, but placing one behind them and one in front of them and one to the side guarantees some damage at the very least. Using KRAKEN for kills isn't very reliable. In my experience, I found that it's better to use KRAKEN as a zoning ability, or pairing it with the previously mentioned tip. Placing KRAKEN behind someone and then immediately firing broadside in front of them will most likely force them to back up. And then what happens when they back up? They get hit with 4k damage. The attention span of players isn't very high in this game, so they'll most likely refocus their attention to the bombardment in front of them, forgetting about KRAKEN behind them. Playing around your teleport is highly encouraged, but don't be afraid to get behind the enemy and put one down behind them. You can easily flank and rack up kills with Dredge, and then retreat back to safety before they can even pin you down. If you're using Scuttle and the enemy is closing in on you, spam your broadside and reload projectiles directly at your feet. Flankers will back off, afraid of being melted, and it also doubles as a smokescreen of sorts. There's just so much visual clutter that it just makes it harder for them to see where you are. It also doesn't help that broadside and the reload projectile don't damage you at all, so I mean, that's a plus, even though the left mouse button does, which is kind of weird. Overall, I give the newest champion Dredge a regrettable 8 out of 10. He leaves me with a mixed bag of emotions. On one hand, he's a much welcomed, much needed champion for those who can't hit the broadside of a barn, get it? On the other hand, he's the last thing the game needed for those who are lucky to have an IQ over 70 and hand-eye coordination that resembles somewhat of an average person. His kit encourages multiple styles of play, he has great sustain, and doesn't suffer from Khan syndrome in the slightest. If you aren't aware of what Khan syndrome is, I made it up. It basically refers to how Khan played when he first released. Like shit. I've watched the Paladin's 1.8 patch preview, and I'm very surprised he wasn't hit by any nerf. In my opinion, he does a bit too much for someone who needs to do so little. If it were up to me, I'd probably just put a cooldown on his right click. I mean, that's really the only thing that seems to be bothering me at most. It just does too much damage, it's just too fast. In conclusion, unless he receives some nerfs in the near future, don't expect him to go away anytime soon in quick play, and don't expect to be able to play him in competitive for a very long time, seeing as they just happen to ban anyone that is new for some stupid reason. Also, they like to ban Willow and Drogos for another stupid reason. I don't really understand why. It's very easy to look up. That's it for this week. What do you think of Dredge? Let me know how you feel about him in the comments section down below, and as always, leave a like if you thought it was somewhat entertaining, and be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't already, if you like what you see. If you'd like to connect with me, I have a Twitter as well as a Discord server, and if you enjoy my content and would like to support me, feel free to purchase a Syberbolt t-shirt. The link for all of these will be in the description down below. Anyway, thanks for watching, I hope you don't abuse Dredge's power too much, and I'll see you next time. Later.